we're fortunate to have the Chamber talk about what they have done for different organizations, for businesses, and for the greater Oshkosh community throughout the year, and certainly what they've done during COVID. So today we have John Casper, who is our President and CEO of the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce. John works with the Chairman of the Board and Board of Directors to formulate policy aimed at advancing the area of business climate. He is responsible for the Chamber's role in legislative and governmental affairs, transportation and aviation issues, workforce development, and small business development. He also oversees Chamber operations and management. And we're also fortunate to have Rob Kleman, who is our Senior Vice President, Economic Development at the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce. Rob leads all facets of economic development programming, including business attraction and retention, entrepreneurial development, investor relations, workforce development, and financial packaging. He is a past president of the Wisconsin Economic Development Association and has served as a member of the board and executive committees of New North and the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board. He is certified as an economic development finance professional through the National Development Council. So please join me in welcoming Rob and John.
Please, sit down. Well, hey, thank you for inviting us in here to your program. I'm very happy to be here, and it's great to be here in person, so thank you for doing this. Being in person reminded me I had to wear pants today, so you know, that's you can think about that yourself. Anyways, Rob and I are going to be tag teaming this this morning, so I'm going to be doing the Debbie Downer stuff and talk about some of the things that have been going on over the last. It's been over 9 months now since COVID has hit us. I think when that happened, I was in Florida at the time on vacation, and you know, Rob was keeping me abreast of what's going on. And by the time I got back, I think on sometime third week of March, Wisconsin was already shut down, and you know, we saw stuff that was going on in Florida. We saw stuff that's going on the way back, going on in every state. And it was kind of a real uncertain time and kind of a scary time for everybody. And we were kind of going into uncharted territory. So we looked at, as an organization, what do we do? What should we? We have membership. We're 900 members at the time, and we needed to provide support to those organizations. But the state was saying, well, you can do that, you can conduct your business, but like a lot of you, some of you are essential, some of you are non-essential, and if you're non-essential, don't bother coming into the office, and try to work out of your home if you can. And for us, a lot of stuff we do are things like this, getting people together, networking, gathering, and helping transact business between business people. And they said, not so fast. Those things are done. You're not going to do those sorts of events anymore. And if you know how we finance ourselves, it's part membership, dues and investments, but it's also we charge for activities and for those events. So we looked at our organization, and about 60% of our revenues come in from events and sponsorships and those sorts of things. So we took a look at what do we do, how do we change, and what are the things that we have to do. And granted, as you all remember, there was stuff coming at us every day. We were there was new information. First of all, nobody knew what COVID was. Nobody knew exactly how serious this was. That uncertainty around that kind of got people a little goofy. But there were a lot of resources that were coming out, and every day something new was coming out, and we needed to, get that information out. A lot of people, because they were unable to transact business in their place of business, they were saying, how do I conduct my business? What do I do in terms of getting people to be productive, working at home, and that sort of thing. Then as we got through, more activities, it's, what are those protocols? What do you do when people do return back to work and customers, come back to my business? How do I make sure I'm protecting my employees, my customers, and that sort of thing? And so we, did a lot of stuff with looking at CDC protocols, and we did our own best practices from, great companies here in town like Oshkosh Corp and Amcor and others. Human resources, and I know Tony knows this, better than anybody else. There are employment law issues, there are medical leave issues, time off issues, and how do you make sure your policies are in alignment with this new environment that we're living in. So there's a lot of resources, a lot of things we needed to share and that sort of thing. But then we sat down and said, well, we can't share that in the ways we used to do. We can't get people together. So what do we do? How do we transact our business? How do we deliver services? In this new world here, and delivery came from doing it in person to virtual kind of thing. So we all learned a new word, and Zoom took on a new meaning for all of us. I think when I got back March 18th, we did our first virtual program, and I think Tina Schulke helped us out with that, and a lot of that programming was how do you conduct an online virtual meeting? How do you conduct business in a virtual workplace? So between March 18th, and I counted this up, and the 26th of March, we did 14 Zoom webcasts on that topic. I wish I had stock in Zoom, and if I only would have known that, I wouldn't be here today. Maybe, who knows? But today we had at 10 o'clock we had our 93rd Zoom webcast. 93 of these we've done, we did a similar number of programming, over usually every month, but delivery was a lot different. But one thing we found out with Zoom webcasts, people attend. I was amazed at the number of people that we would normally get. Maybe 15 to 25 people at a program. We were all of a sudden getting 50, 75, 100 people at these programs, and I thought, wow, this is a kind of a new deal for us and a cool thing. So Zoom may be here for a while, but people get a little lazy around Zoom too. I find myself, when I'm on a Zoomcast, looking at my email, taking phone calls, and not necessarily paying attention. So. But I know they all pay attention to our stuff, so that's all good stuff. A couple things we did is, the community, did a lot of stuff in terms of, preparing, getting people to understand what COVID is all about. So we started a weekly session, a virtual town hall sessions. We rolled those out in April, and we were doing them, pretty consistently every week, as long as we could get a good topic. But we had both our U.S. Senators, Baldwin and Johnson, joined us. Congressman Grothman joined us a couple times. Local government officials, healthcare professionals, law enforcement, they all participated in that, and those became very beneficial for our members and also for the community itself. But we also had to postpone a lot of things. Business after hours, we did two, and one in June and one in July, outdoor events, and we had marginal attendance, so we kind of pulled back on that a little bit. But again, anything that was in person was canceled. We had to cancel Waterfest. That was a big deal for us, and from a financial perspective, it was certainly a big deal. But the community saw, EAA. Be canceled. That's 160 million. I heard $160 million annual impact for this area. I heard the Packers home games is 150 million. So EA is a bigger financial impact than the Green Bay Packers are. So from this community, that certainly was huge. Country USA, Rock USA, Life Fest, all those things were postponed, and we all had to deal with that. When those are canceled, a lot of those, I had a reporter from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel call and say, so how do you mitigate that loss? Well, you don't. You can't just conjure it up. You can't put it on a shelf and sell it for a later time. Once that time's come and gone, it's gone, unfortunately. But we did a lot of stuff on best practices. In terms of protocols for safety, we use CDC as kind of a baseline for that. But we reached out to Oshkosh Corporation, Amcor, a lot of big companies that, really, have, took this on very, very, very hard in their organizations, and we put together a best practices document and sent that out to to all of our members. At the same time, we've encouraged them to not just meet the standard, but exceed the standard. People are expecting safety. People want their workplace to be safe. They want to keep their customers safe, their employees safe, and their families safe. But at the same time, they want to maintain their livelihoods. So, businesses were really stressed in terms of trying to do all the right things, and we took a couple lumps and bumps for trying to advocate for reopening, and we did that very, very early, probably more aggressively than others. But we thought it's very important to keep doing it. We will continue to do that. We got into a couple of things that I never thought we'd ever sell. We sold hand sanitizer, partnered up with AP Nonweiler. A lot of companies started producing sanitizer, and we sold about 170 gallons of sanitizer to area businesses, and we also facilitated several hundred gallons of sanitizers that went to the 3 area hospitals and local nursing facilities. So, we thought that's something important we need to get out to people. Face masks. Again, I never thought we'd sell face masks, but we sell the 3-ply disposable surgical face mask, which is supposed to be rated very highly, and also the KN95 face masks, which are the primo of face masks. So if you need any of those, we sold about 30,000 of those over the last several months. And I've taken some lumps and bumps on that too. I was anti-face mask, and I said, why would I be anti-face mask? I'm trying to sell these things. So, we encourage people to do that and do the right thing, and they are. I see that all over the place. People wear their face masks when I'm out. In any business, it doesn't matter where I'm at. People are heeding to those warnings and are doing those right things. So. So those are some things we did. Back in July, we did a drive-through job fair with the Workforce Development Board. And when they first talked to us about hosting that, I thought, well, this sounds pretty hokey. What is this all about? People are going to drive by and you're going to take a big long stick and put a bag of flyers of job openings, and it kind of was like that, but not so much. But we had 400 people. We ran out of bags. 70 companies participated, and they've replicated this. They did it, I think, one in Menasha now, one in Fond du Lac now, and it was a smashing success, which I was blown away by that. So, but a lot of our activities were legislative and government affairs related. The shutdown hurt business. Back in April, I think we had 14.3% unemployment rate, and I think in October we're at 4.1 now. So we're crawling back from where we were. But again, throughout this whole thing, we always advocated for reopening safely, and doing the right things for people. And we wanted to keep people safe, but we wanted to maintain livelihoods of businesses. The initial shutdown, we thought after 2 weeks we seen enough, and we knew enough about what was going on and who the most vulnerable populations were. So we started, coming out pretty strongly. Finally, the Supreme Court, had to intervene and declared that unlawful. Our county, responded by, well, we're gonna shut you down again. And we questioned whether or not they had the authority to do that, and our county executive, believed he did, and that was on a Friday morning. That Friday afternoon, the Attorney General said, not so fast, you don't. So we've been following that issue very, very closely, and I know a lot of you have also. But the county COVID-19 ordinance was passed, was it last week or the week before? That was a process. The county, I know they're trying to do the right thing. Everyone's trying to do the right thing, but they're trying to slide that thing through in early June. I asked the county executive June, or second week of June, I said, are you guys looking at doing something like this? And he wasn't aware of it. And that Friday, they passed an ordinance, or at least recommended an ordinance from the Board of Health, and they were going to bring it to the county board the following Tuesday. And they were hoping nobody was watching, but a lot of people watched. And we got about 500 people to show up for a legislative meeting at the Sunnyview Health, I call it Health Center now, but Expo Center, thank you. I know Al was there and some of you all, others were there. In my 30 plus years at the chamber, I've never seen that many people show up for one issue, for any meeting. I don't know if Al, you get around a lot of these things. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that either, but it was
Very rare.
amazing. It was amazing. People were not happy, and people were very engaged, and people were very motivated to speak their mind on that. But yeah, long story short, it was passed by the county board. We had about 300 people at their first meeting, which they messed up by not giving everybody the right ordinance, so they had to postpone it, and then 270 the following month. You know, a couple good things that they changed with that the ordinance does not allow them to have any general orders to shut everybody down, and that is a good thing. The other thing they did add to that was it takes legislative, not just oversight, but approval before they can adopt any general public health orders. So if the health department wants to eliminate all gatherings of any size, that would have to go to the county board, and the county board would have to sign off on that. So if they want to shut down bars or shut down restaurants, that all have to go to the county board. So why the county board wants to do that and take that misery on, I have no idea, but they did. A lot of people said, well, what are we to expect? And I keep telling people, just look to see what's going on in Dane County. Dane County is going to, I think got out early on this stuff a couple of weeks ago. They started clamping down on businesses there. I know I saw something in someplace online today that the businesses down there are starting to push back on their county board and the city of Madison. So we'll stay tuned on all those sorts of things. The other issue that came up was the governor's office talked about wanting to release names of businesses that had COVID cases. So if the chamber had 2 employees, for example, we did not, but with COVID, we would be listed on a registry of businesses with a COVID issue, which nowadays I think everybody's had a COVID issue, except for the chamber has not. So I just want to throw that in there. Not yet, anyways. But we kind of question whether that, what's the point of that? I think the point was really to single out bars, restaurants, to show that they're the culprits behind all this stuff, which statistics does not show that. So they backed off of that. The Milwaukee Journal Sentinel asked for that information through a public information request, and so they brought it back out as a proposal, and WMC challenged that. We got involved with a brief on that, and as of I think on Monday, the court ordered a temporary restraining order against that. So I think that will probably be gone for quite some time and won't rear its head anymore. In terms of our programming, I mean, it's really has significantly impacted our operations. We're unable to do anything in person. Everything's virtual. Our expo, which is usually in January, we pushed back to the 14th of April. We're hoping that we can do that. We're hoping that Waterfest won't be lost this year, that we can get that back to normal. But we're, I think Mike has booked a band already for August, and they're already talking about social distancing, for that event. And it's like, well, if we have to social distance at a concert, we're not going to be in business there. So. In terms of our staff, we made some changes real quickly. April 1, we temporarily laid off 5 of our staff people. Most of them were involved with either education programming or doing events. And since we weren't doing events, it didn't make sense to keep them on payroll. We were hoping that the shutdown would have been would have been short-lived and wouldn't have been as impacted. We wouldn't have been as impacted by that. We unfortunately permanently laid off 4 of those people and brought back Patty Andreessen's shoe, which most of you know. She did our leadership programming and also education programming. So even though we backed off on education programming because schools really aren't in session, we brought her back. She's got great background in marketing and other things. So so we're down to how many we got? 5 people.
Yeah.
Full time on staff, and but it's been good. I mean, everyone kind of stepped up and did things. One thing you find out about people, you find out they have talents that you never knew. Mark Halfin, who's our tech guy, kind of a back office guy. I'm amazed at what he can do and how much he can do. So it's been a positive from that standpoint in terms of finding people with new undiscovered talents.
You found out your economic development person doesn't have many extra talents.
He comes in the office now, which is I'm kidding.
Coffee.
With that, I mean, I'll answer questions before I turn it over to Rob, but that's one thing we found out, we were a little concerned about this going in is, how is the membership going to respond? We have 2 kinds of members. Some are kind of mission centric who want to support our activities around marketing, around economic development, legislative affairs, and that sort of thing. And then we have a lot of members that are transactional, are small members who are looking to interact with people, looking for networking things and that sort of thing. But they stuck with us. I mean, they have stuck with us in terms of staying members. We've had some that, were hit harder, hospitality industry, bars, restaurants, that sort of thing. And, they're hanging in there as long as they can with us, and we're certainly going to be supporting them, and we'll continue to support them. So, we appreciate all of you for hanging in there with us and supporting us. If anyone has any questions, I'll answer those questions. If not, I'll throw over to Rob, and he's going to give you better news than I had. So, all right.
There is good news.
Oh,
what's the future for business after hours?
I would hope by May we'll be back in business there, and a lot of that is getting people to. I mean, this could all go away tomorrow, for example, and it may take people 3-4 months to venture out again and feel confident that you can go out safely and feel good about things. So I think if we, probably May-ish, we should probably be able to do some more outdoor kind of stuff. I think our early after hours will be outdoor activities. We did do 2 golf outings this past year, and those were great. I mean, we sold those things out, and people showed up for that. So, but it'll be some time, yeah.
Okay.
All right, Rob, yours.
Okay. Thanks, John. I think I'll stand back here so that I can see the PowerPoint that I'm talking about. But I'll try to talk loud enough, Rachel. Let me know if I'm not. I'm usually pretty loud, so. Yeah, John, I mean, you weren't all negative. You talked about kind of some of the things that we did during, the past year. And that's what I really wanted to do, was just kind of give a summary of some of the, as Rachel asked, some of the COVID programs that we were involved with and that the community was engaged with, and the state and the feds. And then, just a review on what did happen in Oshkosh. I mean, we haven't seen each other and been out and about, but there actually have been a significant amount of development projects that have been taking place this year. So some of them were in the works, some of them weren't, but it's actually been a real good year. You'll see that later on. Our organization, the Chamber here, we've been, I've been there 30 years. John's been there 33 longer. He's a lot older. But we've always had an economic development program, and there's other partners we work with in the community, in the region, in the state, that are, everybody's kind of working out of that same boat to promote the development in our communities and our region. Our main goal is really business attraction, marketing, and working with existing businesses. The attraction and marketing thing in 2020 was, kind of, those efforts were really kind of stymied. And I think personally, I've been to about 80 different trade shows in the last 20 years. So, I mean, we've usually gone to 2 to 3 a year to market opportunities, Oshkosh, those are really real estate shows. We didn't do that this year. Most of those activities were canceled, if not all of them. So, but that's going to come back. But so this year we really spent a lot of time working with our local existing businesses in Oshkosh and the region, some of our partners on sharing best ideas, best practices, and what are you doing in your community that we could do here and that sort of thing. So that's been a real good experience. And of course, entrepreneurs, people are still, interested in starting businesses. They are starting businesses. We had the annual Fast Pitch event last week, which was virtual, but 2 folks from our area are into the finals of that. We actually had 9 entries. We worked with Appleton and Oshkosh in our region. Final that came out in the end, but there were 2 folks that are advancing. They won $1,000 and $500, and now New North is conducting finalists tomorrow. I'm the timekeeper for that. They drafted me for the timekeeper, John, so I do have the skilling.
You're the only one who counts.
iPhone. Yeah. So then they're going to have a couple folks on the entrepreneur side at the New North event that's scheduled for Lambeau in March. So hopefully that event takes place. The New North Annual Summit will probably be around right now. So I was going to be at Lambeau in December. They pushed it off to March. So we'll see if that happens. But and then, really a lot of our efforts are just to diversify the local economy, whether it's manufacturing, service businesses, retail, and trying to have a well-balanced economy. Our efforts really at the Chamber, we're really focused on developing and building out the IT community in Oshkosh. You hear about Amplify Oshkosh, so I've got a little bit later on Amplify, but we spend a lot of our time on the economic development side working with that group. That consortium's been around since 2014. There's 40 different organizations, people involved in that consortium that's growing, supporting advanced manufacturing. Our offices, anybody needs anything, you have confidential service on whatever it might be, whether it's incentives, demographics. If people are looking for information, they come through us. Folks are referred to us from all over the place, from legal, accounting, real estate. We get people just somehow find their way through the Chamber. About 500 touches a year. We have our own RLF at the Chamber for small businesses, which we can loan up to $50,000 to folks out of that fund. And we handle for many years a county's CDBG revolving loan fund, which those funds have gone back to the Fed, so they're gone on the county. But I'll talk a little bit later about another program the county has that we used for COVID. And downtown, we all are supporting central business district efforts through the bid and supporting the city's redevelopment efforts, their sawdust district plan, their downtown plan. We want to help be as supportive as we can to continue to build out the central business district. Then, of course, John mentioned workforce development. We want to stay really engaged in that, and that's not going away. That issue it's still here. Labor shortage. And then we're involved regionally with all sorts of different organizations, so we know what incentives are out there, what resources are out there. So we try to stay engaged in a regional and statewide level as well, so we can bring those programs back to our local businesses. I mentioned we have about 500 people that come through our office on an annual basis. We average about 90 to 150 business cases, which that's projects we spend a significant amount of time on. And it varies from year to year. This year, it's kind of a roll up of this year. It was a little different. Last year, I think we were at 95. This year, we had 61 business cases that we tracked of projects whether it's a community tour, whether it's somebody needing financing, that sort of thing. And we had 10 project wins, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But there's, that activity level has actually picked up come August into September. I think people were feeling a little bit better about the economy and things. Things picked up a little bit early fall. So what did we do from a COVID support program specifically? And there were you probably heard about some of these. We had our own loan program, the county loan program, our city loan programs that were developed. The state through WEDC developed the We're All In and We're All Innovating grant program. Federal CARES Act funding was big. The PPP program was really a game changer. We had our small loan programs, $10,000, $2,500, WEDC grants, $2,500, $5,000. So they're all good and important, but the Paycheck Protection Program was really where the significant dollars were at for our local businesses, and a lot of them took advantage of it. So we worked pretty closely with our local banks to make referrals and get people into that program specifically. You just look I think it turned out to be by the second round, about 550 billion. I had 600 billion, and the Wall Street Journal today said it was 550 billion that the Feds put into the PPP program. In Wisconsin, we were right around $10 billion in funding that came into Wisconsin through those loans. There were 2.4 billion in loans under 150,000. So I mean, there were a lot of small businesses were able to take advantage of this program, and kind of the PR that it got was all these big businesses sucked up all this money, 500 companies, but there was a lot of money delivered. And if you talk to our, whoever you want at any bank, we talk about the Bank First folks, and they had over 1,500 customers of theirs that took advantage of PPP. Over 29 million in Oshkosh, under 150,000. So that's a significant amount of cash that came rolling into our community. The other big thing the SBA did that the Feds did was they made payments. All customers who had 7A loans and 504 loans, those are all long-term fixed rate financing loans that businesses use to finance their expansions and their real estate. The SBA made their payments for 6 months. So they didn't, so if you had a $5,000 a month SBA loan payment, they made the payment for you for 6 months. I mean, that was big. There was a lot of help and support from the federal government, that's for sure. Us locally, we created a small program out of our loan fund called the Bar and Restaurant Loan Program. It was, the first couple weeks, we had a whole number of applicants. We did close 9 loans under that, totaling about 20 grand to some of our bars and restaurants locally. We deferred payments to October and now to January because we thought things would be rolling a little faster than we are. So we'll probably end up pushing those out even further. Who knows, John? I don't know. And then we have very, very flexible repayment terms, $100 a month for 26 months. Some of them have come and paid us off already because things picked up a little bit with that program. The one we were really engaged with was Winnebago County has a separate $3 million loan program that's not utilized. They've had this money sitting in Winnebago County for years in a fund, but it requires the local taxing jurisdiction to back the loan. So if we loan some money to this local law firm for an expansion, that's fine out of that fund, but the city of Oshkosh or the city, wherever you might be located, has to back the loan. So municipalities don't want to do that anymore because it counts against their debt capacity limits. So that money's been sitting there, and so we convinced them with our friends at GoEDC and the Fox Cities Chamber to put it into a fund, take some of that money. So they took $750,000 and created this disaster fund, this emergency rapid recovery fund. And we did 33 loans out of that. We worked together with those partners with GoEDC, and GoEDC is administering the loans, but we're all working together. We meet weekly. We have a loan review team that we made up from folks from the business community, from the Fox Cities Chamber, ourselves, and GoEDC. And they reviewed all these loans, spent a lot of time. Did 33 $10,000 loans that were very helpful. We just got an application today. It tailed off. We really did a lot of loans in April, May, and June, and then kind of tapered off. And we still got funds remaining out there because we're a little concerned about the first quarter of 2021. So this money is still available. If you know anybody that needs a quick shot in the arm of some capital, some cash, it's a patient return. It's deferred for 6 months. It's 2% interest, and it's available. So between the two programs, we did 42 loans in a short period of time. It really resulted. It was 404 jobs that were locally retained because of it. The city also has a loan program. I think about 17 loans were done out of that. So pretty close, almost close to 60 loans in a couple of months at $10,000 increments. So that was good. The other one I want to mention is WEDC's We're All In grant program. Probably read a little bit about that. Phase 1, we all had to write support letters for that program to confirm that they were a local business. We did 150 out of the chamber for local folks. And 375,000 resulted in those approvals at 2,500 apiece. There were almost 400 Oshkosh businesses that got a Phase 1 We're All In grant at $2,500 each. Phase 2 is in progress. We're now they're sending out responses this week. They had 50 million programmed for a Phase 2 back in late fall now, and they added 70 million 2 weeks ago. They had 48,000 applications turned in, so they didn't have enough money. They still did. I mean, tons of our folks have been turned down. Some have told me today that they've got a positive thumbs up on the $5,000 grant. So a lot of folks that we know. So that's a good thing. The restaurants, they just introduced this overnight, the We're All In restaurant program. So for restaurants that have annual revenue between 1 and 7 million, they're gonna give them 20 grand. It's not an application process. DOR is just gonna go through their tax returns, and I think they probably know already how many restaurants in Wisconsin have between 1 and 7 million in sales. The governor announced today that he's putting 45 million of CARES funding into that. Unfortunately, a lot of John and I were talking on the way up, a lot of our restaurants are under $1 million in revenue. So, but that was what phase 1 and phase 2 was kind of designed to help smaller businesses under $1 million. So that's the reasoning. So I guess that's good news. We've certainly got a few restaurants that would fall in that category, but they're just going to get a check that shows up for 20 grand. So John mentioned the drive-through job fair. Yeah, it was a success. And Bobby Miller at the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board approached us and said, "What do you think of this?" They did it in Omaha, and it was successful. So that went well. There's a picture of kind of our parking lot on July 15th. And John mentioned the National Final Act followed up in the fall with one on their end. 70 companies submitted job application or job postings in these packets that we handed out. It did rain in the afternoon. I remember that now. It's cloudy, geez, but it was warm. So that we'll probably do those, and we may do that again. We'll have to see how things go here in the spring. From a project highlight in 2020, it was a good year. I mean, if you think back and look at the mine shaft just down the road, and they're doing pretty well. They've had a really good opening. They've added about 137 new full-time jobs. They've subsequently opened up a bakery. So all the baked goods for their whole system are made here in Oshkosh and distributed, and then you can stop in and get specialty baked goods, bread, that sort of thing is available here. So it's pretty cool. Has everybody been there? Has everybody had a chance to see it for the most part? You'll be amazed at when you do get in there, what they've done with the construction of that place. The Brio building. So the mine shaft, we worked with those guys since 2013. It was really a labor of love for those guys. They're really great people, excellent business people, run quality establishment in Hartford and Fox and Hounds in Hubertus. So we're glad to have them here. They could have went anywhere with us in the valley. The Brio building is under construction. We worked with Merge, toured back in 2018, many sites and opportunity zones in Oshkosh. The food co-op is going to locate there. And they also own the site on the corner across from our building. So they own that land now. That's been sold to them by the RDA. So there's future plans for another 250 to 400 units of residential, along with more commercial on the corner site, on the corner of kind of Jackson and Marion Road on the river. But this one will include 60 units of new upper floor residential units. And if you drive by our offices, you'll see kind of taking shape. I think they're on the 4th floor. They're to the 4th floor right now on their construction activities. Of course, Oshkosh Avenue, worked real closely with Steve Hoopman, Randy Schmiedo, and referrals are kind of helping them through some of the process, and toured hotels in southern Wisconsin, and ended up with the Marriott Town Place, which is under construction right out in front of Oshkosh Corp's headquarters, and Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins. You can see that building under construction. Should be open sometime late spring, early summer. And they've got a couple other tenants that they're working with. Hopefully some more announcements coming there. Worked real closely with Bank First. They located their offices out on the west side here, but they looked at about 20 different locations for that facility. Shea Electric, same thing. We work real closely with Dan. He found the former G manufacturing building out in the Southwest Industrial Park. He's got some really nice offices out there. He'd be happy to give anybody a tour. He's really proud of what they've done. Everybody knows Dan. Stop out. You buy a cup of coffee. Chick-fil-A, we're working with their local operator now. They should be open January 1st is the goal. And you can see it's really taking shape. And next to that is Discount Tire. I don't have that on this list, but Discount Tire is what's under construction next to the bar. Andy Duncan and Partners bought that and then ended up selling that to Discount Tire for that project. But worked closely with John Davids and Julie and Home Care Assistance on their expansion. We borrowed them some money through our fund and helped them move over to the former A&E Jewelers place, and then Adventure Games on Main Street, moved from Oregon Street, and expanded into at 408 North Main. And I'm sure they're hoping for this COVID thing to pass, because a lot of their businesses is board games, and they have all these events with people. So just can't get over fast enough for them. Same thing with them toxins. I mean, they have this indoor zoo kind of, it's pretty cool. But they want things to loosen up so that they can get going with all the plans that they have for the Venom Lab and through educational groups, et cetera. Javad and Smart IS, they moved over to the Davis Painting Building next to the arena, moved off of Ohio Street, and they've subsequently leased that space to Legal Services on Ohio Street. But they've got some really cool space that they have redeveloped, and I'm sure Javad would love to be doing an open house at some point, and they're going to be starting on external renovations to that building now. They're going to be redoing the outside of that next to the arena, so I think more public will be able to see some improvements happening there in 2021. And then, of course, the new airport terminal project, Drive Down 20th, that's under construction. They're building it first, and then they're going to demo the old facility. So they did receive a fair amount of funding to get that $7 million project done here. That'll be a front door from an aviation perspective. And then it's an ad we had in the business news, but it kind of depicts in a nice way some of the projects we just talked about to promote what's happening in Oshkosh last month. And then there's some extra, I won't go through these, each and every one of these. I've got a copy of the PowerPoint on your desk, but some of the other projects, I'll note, quietly, 4imprint expanded 86,000 square feet of new industrial space just down the road here out in the Southwest Industrial Park, and use a sheet metal purchase, former, let's call it Dynamic Drinkware Avalon Paper Building. And they're expanding over there. You'll notice a lot of work happening in that building right over on Oakwood Road. So the city demolished 43 East 7th in the Sawdust District. They're hoping to put out an RFP. They've got a 5-acre site now that's developable. So and then of course a lot of housing projects. The one most people are asking about is what's going on behind Fleet Farm. And that's Aspire. It's a Heritage Living, but it's going to be called Aspire Senior Living, and over 120 units initially, but they can that'll be phased with more senior, all the way up the gamut, senior housing, senior living. And then the city council, I don't have it on this list yet, but the council just approved the SC Sudersky development out on Highway 91, and that's 172 new units in 14 apartment buildings just out on 91 here, called the Swiderski development. So a lot of that happening, and then Tom Barr and that group on Witzel, which we mentioned earlier, is developing. Mentioned. Yeah. So a lot of residential development happening. Not to mention the former Cabrini School, Andy Duncan and Partners have the tax credits program for that project, and they'll be building 35 new senior units in the former Cabrini School down on Merritt. Amplify, I talked a little bit about it. That's that network. Last week we had Byron Franz from the FBI talking about cybersecurity. That's a big subject these days, and he is really an excellent speaker. We'd love for him to be a keynote in-person speaker someday in the near future if we can hold an event like that, but very informative. And then we had some local folks from some local businesses talking about various ways to protect yourself, your data, your families, all those sorts of things. And we have one coming up, an event with Jenny Molash. Everybody knows Jenny. I used to be with Silver Star. She's now HR director at US Ventures. And next Thursday, she's gonna be doing a coffee clutch. The story behind that is we called it a coffee clutch. And we had a couple people call and said, that kind of has a negative connotation. It's really a coffee clutch. And he said, I hadn't heard of that. So we asked 10 people, and all 10 people said, I've never heard of that. So we said, all right, we're going to keep it coffee clutch. But apparently, technically, it's a coffee clutch. But hey, we're going with it. But Jenny's going to talk about kind of job seeking and job recruiting in a virtual world. And And it's a little different these days, you know, if you're looking for a new position or even recruiting, it's tough. So she's gonna have all sorts of good data from an HR perspective on what some new ideas and what to expect in the future from an HR recruitment perspective. Just to wrap up, yeah, John mentioned earlier, our unemployment rate's 4.1% in October. These numbers just came out this week. Was 3.5% in September, so it actually ticked up a little bit over the month, which we expected. There, you know, it was 14.3% back in April, so pretty amazing the swing. Some folks will tell you full employment is 5%. So I mean, we're already in a labor shortage. It depends who you talk to, what industry, but for the most part, unless it's retail or service, you know, they're still trying to overcome this, but a lot of industries are doing real well. We have a little over 1,400 people unemployed in Oshkosh. It's counted today. Back in April, there were almost 5,000, to give you a perspective. Before the pandemic, we were at 900 in March. But the good news is you can hardly read that, but the employment, there's actually 73 more city residents, that's top line, third column, in working this year over last year, even in spite of everything. So Winnebago County, it's really the same story, 4% unemployment, 3,700 people unemployed now versus 13,000 back in April. So there's been a significant recovery, and we're on the plus side also from an employment perspective versus this year versus last. And then finally, and this is really hard to read, I know you've got it in your package, but just the one number this compares our new construction activity in Oshkosh over a 10-year period and how we fared with our neighbors to the north and south. We've done very well. These are State Department of Revenue numbers in commercial and industrial. You can kind of see where Oshkosh, it's 275 million commercial over 10 years. I think it's 52 in industrial, but last year's numbers were great. This is a combined commercial industrial and how Oshkosh permitting went, and obviously these are state numbers, so we're at 65 million in new construction in 2020 summary. So just remember, 20 numbers are 19, so all this stuff going on this year, which we're estimating at least, just some of the projects we talked about, 2020 is at least $50 million in development, so I think those numbers are going to continue along this path. So pretty good news story. And, I think I'll stop there for now. If there's any questions or comments or feedback, yeah, Tony?
So the one you didn't mention, I saw it maybe a little bit yesterday, the Miles Kimball building down in South Main.
Yes.
So what didn't make the list yet? Yeah, it's too late.
Yeah.
What's the story or what's the scoop?
Yeah, so Kip Golden and CR Structures and some other partners are redeveloping that for residential and maybe some commercial on the first floor. I think those plans are still kind of going, but they're going to be purchasing that building from Javad and his partner group to redevelop it. So that's good news.
Is it a timeline or anything, or is this just kind of in the?
Well, I think 2021. Yeah, I think they're going to move on it. They're buying it. They're going to move. We're going to see development activity there.
We are hoping to have them on the developers panel in February, so hopefully they'll have.
They agreed to it?
We put them on the list to add.
Good.
So if you want to give a good.
I can help. I know Kip real well, so if you can hand, I could be happy to help. Yep. Yeah. I didn't mention Smith School either, but it's on the list. Chet Wiesenberg and those folks are proposing to redevelop that. Plans are still in the works too for that. Javad had plans for a rooftop cafe on the Miles Kimball building, which would have been really cool, but I think they got the estimates back and went, maybe not. Rooftop cafe here. We'll see. Okay, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity.